industry-leading mobile app you can use to pay your bill, file and manage a claim, or add a new driver.
But when life gets a little easier, it makes you too confident, and you start calling everyone Ace. And you're better than that.
Well, Geico has a 97% customer satisfaction rating and has been saving people money for 85 years. It's hard to beat that.
But you're right.
Switch to Geico. It's obviously a good idea.
Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Microban 24 protects against Staphylococcus aureus and Enterobacter aerogenes bacteria, but does not provide 24-hour protection against viruses. Every time you touch a surface, you leave behind bacteria. Use Microban 24 sanitizing spray to keep surfaces sanitized all day. Spray on hard surfaces to kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses initially, including the virus that causes COVID-19. Microban 24 keeps killing bacteria for 24 hours, touch after touch. When used as directed, Microban 24, touch after touch, it doesn't give up.
They call me an outlaw, but is it wrong to love Papa V's Take and Bake Pizza with brisket, barbecue sauce, and crunchy Fritos? Because Outlaw Pizza is unlawfully good.
Take and bake yours, only from Papa Murphy's, only for a limited time.
Sadness and misery, I don't feel either of you. I'm in a good mood.
Okay.
Hey, man, what's wrong?
Well, it just didn't sound very bluesy.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut Cheerios can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Oh, hey, Buzz.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
Smile on my face.
Nope, that's still happy.
Have a change of heart with Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at the store.
Test is also your free music app. Yep, the free iHeart app now lets you create playlists totally free. Hear a song on the radio that you love? Just grab it and start a brand new playlist of oh wow songs. You're one tap away from being able to save all the songs from your favorite stations. So go ahead, get started now. It's free. Do one for every day of the week. It's entirely up to you and entirely free on the iHeart app. Number one for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. You're the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 19th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. The Vidi Vidi Vici. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton, we're doing a lot better than the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they needed a defibrillator after the game on Saturday night, and I think they've been put on life support since then.
Yeah.
But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They know how to work that defibrillator while they're on life support.
They know how to work it, and they thought they were going to need it for some bug, but that bug said, I know what I do when I see a flame. I run. run away. It's all fair and love. Where I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He will do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. You better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. I really want to thank Xfinity, Comcast TV for updating our Big C Sports page. Anywhere you are in the world, go to the iHeartRadio app, look at Big C Sports Podcast on TV. It looks really good. It's all fair and level. Where I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced, Big C, helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, more people are doing it from sea to shining sea. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, regardless of how many people that are doing it, I don't know if it's ever going to be enough to stop the horrific rate of suicide that's going on in this country. We lose over 24 veterans alone every day, Charlton, to that horrific disease.
Wow.
And even more and more private, everyday citizens are succumbing to it also. I mean, the world came together when they talked about COVID-19. What can we do to get rid of that horrific disease, Charlton? Now the world needs to come together and work on suicide prevention. Find a way to stop suicide. It is an epidemic that has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
And we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton. But mental health in this country and around the world is just as important as physical health. People have a tendency to pay more attention to physical health, especially when we look at these great athletes on television and everybody talks about how marvelous that they are. But you also have to think about the tremendous pressure that they're under. And think about people who don't have the financial and team backing that they have, the type of pressure that they're under mentally, Charlton. And unfortunately, in too many occasions, it has led to suicide.
Yeah.
So as a country, let's think about suicide like we thought about COVID-19 and the way we think about athletes also.
Very well said. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, we will do our part. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones, even if it's the person making the call. Also want to say, very happy to be affiliated with Valley, home with weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the first place San Francisco Giants. If only by a couple of inches, they're a half game and they're playing the Dodgers tonight in a series. It should be a fantastic series. Our goal is simple. Just want to recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, sports teams are doing it, even Nike does it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of the loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. When you want a loan, don't just be sure, be Rocket Sure. My favorite commercial on TV is a little girl answering the phone. She said, "Hello, you need a loan?" She said, "Daddy, this for you." It's all fair and love and war. I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe, just like in Genesis 1:3. God said, "Let there be light." Open your cell phones or any of your electronic devices and just say, "Play Big C Sports Podcast." Just like Captain Kirk used to say, "Beam me up, Scotty." Just say, "Play Big C Sports Podcast." You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Also, this segment is sponsored by your Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol, 100% on your game. It goes great with that Big C burger. It is a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats, and it tastes better in your mouth than it does in your hand. Big C, they were asking Giannis, Antetokounmpo, after his dynamic game and that slam dunk that he had to win the game, they were asking him, Giannis, like, what do you eat? He said, "I'm kind of hungry, and I'm going to have a burger." Man, Giannis fumbled the ball, Big C. He was supposed to say, "I'm going to have the Big C burger," Big C. It does.
Well, I guess he was going to use some sun to cook it, Charlton, the way he cooked him out in the desert.
Yeah. He said he don't need another. He'll just go down to the desert and cook his food. It's all fair and level war. No matter what people think about this series with the Milwaukee Bucks and also the Phoenix Suns, I'm hoping that we get 7 games because Magic Johnson wanted to thank the networks back in the day for giving him 7 games. I said, how did Magic Johnson know the network gave him 7 games? Maybe he was misspeaking. It's all fair and love and war. But I really do love what's going on in the world of NBA basketball. Big C, Milwaukee continues to punish. They punish the Suns. That's not a smart thing when you punish the Sun, Big C, your thugs.
Well, they've been stomping all over them, Charlton. When you think about a Buck, they got 4 hoods.
Yeah.
And they've been putting them all in the backside of the Sun.
Yeah. You know you're a bad mother blucker if you can punish the Sun. It's all fair in level war like Thanos in the Avengers. But the Bucks, they tallied 11 offensive rebounds on Saturday, including 5 in the 4th period, Big C. Phoenix attempted just 11 free throws. 11 over the course of the evening. They usually get 11 and a half, Big C. But when you think about it, it attempted 9 fewer threes than the Milwaukee Bucks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is because of the dominance, and I talked about the physicality in our last show that the Bucks needed to display against the Suns. They're the more physically dominant team, and in athletics, physical dominance always has a tendency to put you out front of your opponent. And you could see it wearing down the Phoenix Suns, Charlton, as this game went on. The Phoenix Suns went out in the first quarter and played outstanding. I mean, I think they gave up all of what they had in the first quarter, and they let themselves a little gasp after that and had nothing left, because in the second quarter, it was like the Bucks showed up and said, hey, this is our house.
Yeah, this is our house. It's a pretty frightening scene when the Buck gets up off the barbecue grill like Terminator and Predator. He's all burned up on fire, and he gets up, and I think the Bucks are watching Terminator. The fire couldn't even stop him. Big C behind King Giannis. Here's King Giannis on the Antetokounmpo and great Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. The Bucks really are peaking at the right time and just one win away from the NBA championship. I remember one time the Lakers won. I think they only lost one playoff game in one of their three-piece with Shaq and Kobe. The Bucks have seemed to have lost in every series, Big C, but I think they do better coming from behind, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Charlton, it doesn't make any difference how many games you lose in a series as long as you win more than what you lose. And then when you look at a series in the NBA, you have to win at least 4 of those games. You can lose 3, but that 4 that you win is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, it's the only thing that matters, unless you're a Buck and you can't get all your 3 hooves off the barbecue grill off there at Leavenworth. But when you think about that scenario, that seemed relatively unthinkable just over a week ago. People were saying, you want to crown him, crown him. The late Dennis Green, they were ready to crown the Phoenix Suns. And it's not over yet, Big C. It's not over. But when you think about it, they're just 48 minutes from the Larry O'Brien Trophy following Saturday. It was a close game. It was 123-119, a nail-biter victory. And I know as great as Devin Booker is, he scored over 80 points in the last 2 games, but he got the ball stolen away trying to go 1-on-3 when it mattered the most. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you can sit there and say he scored over 80 points in the last 2 games, but I think those over 80 points in the last 2 games helped contribute to the losses, Charlton. I mean, statistics, when we get down to that about what a player scored and how dominant he looked, at the end of the day, it's a team game. Did the Phoenix Suns outscore the Milwaukee Bucks in the last 2 games? I think that's the number one thing on the ledger that everybody's looking at.
Yeah, he had a couple of more good old boys that put up like him. They were just 1 point away. Is that good old boy Eminem? You only got 1 shot. He had 1 shot, and I think it was less than 20 seconds left, and maybe he panicked, but he had a chance to run an offensive play, and he went down into the paint, get the ball stolen at about 13 seconds left. And I mean, you can't knock a guy scoring 40, but at the same time, maybe pull out and realize set up a better play. That's just my opinion. But you think about it, if Milwaukee, if they can think about it, in fact, close the deal on Tuesday night, and I hate that. I think it's going to happen Thursday, just my opinion. Maybe if I wish hard enough, it'll happen on Thursday. When you think about it, Big C, whether it's home or in Phoenix, we should remember the Bucks with a special designation. Drew Holiday, a one-time All-Star who had crossed 20 points per game just once in 11 seasons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when it comes down, you have to pick your poison, Charlton, and that's what the Milwaukee Bucks have done. Drew Holiday has always had the ability to score. When they brought him to Milwaukee, they brought him in to be a defender as much as anything and a playmaker.
Yeah.
And he's done all of that in this series. I mean, he's actually just dominated Chris Paul. I think that's one of the reasons why Chris Paul is broken down. You see him constantly trying to push off from Drew Holiday, but he stayed in his pocket more than that sun stripe across the front of his jersey, Charlton. Drew Holiday has been a nemesis for the guards for the Phoenix Suns. And I think that, when you think about Williams, he's done a bad job in making the adjustment. He should have put Booker on Holiday, who is a bigger guard, and have him offset what Chris Paul could do and not have Paul having to work so hard against Holiday, Charlton. But that's a bad coaching matchup.
Well, Holiday played defense like he has a holiday named after him. Absolutely hounded Chris Paul. Kind of like those dogs that they bark and bark and bark, at your car, then you stop, they run away. Well, Holiday didn't run away. He kept playing defense, Big C's off fair 11 war. But when you think about it, he's not a perfect player in any sense of the word. Played at UCLA and been to a couple of teams, also down to New Orleans. He's not exactly a physical player, but Holiday is so much more than his offensive profile suggests. He's like a small version of Dennis Rodman, in my opinion. Not going to give you a lot of points on offense, but he gets in your grill like he's playing a defensive back the way Deion Sanders used to hold on every play, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he reminds me a lot of Joe Dumars, who used to play with the bad boy Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
The type of off guard that he was. You let Isaiah Thomas run everything, and Joe Dumars did all the dirty work. And that's what we've been seeing with Drew Holiday. He's done all the dirty work. He's done everything that you could ask of. Here's a guy that's going in, hitting the boards, getting the rebounds. Charlton, I believe he had 13 assists on Saturday night against the Phoenix Suns to go along with his 27 points.
Yeah.
So when you talk about an all-around game, Charlton, he brought it. And there was no answer because he can just dominate whether you got Chris Paul on him, Charlton, and he can jump over him.
Yep.
He can push him off, Charlton. He can find his spot on the floor.
Yep.
And he did it all with ease this Saturday night.
Now, he did it all with ease because he knows his role, Big C. I mean, you think about it, as you mentioned, dropping 27 points. He was 12 of 20 shooting. That's not the best night, but it's decent enough. He drilled 3 triples in the second quarter.
That's 60% from the floor.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty damn good.
Not that bad at all, Big C. But when you think about it, in a period, you saw a 16-point Phoenix lead completely erased at the half. And to me, when that lead was erased, it's as if, like Usain Bolt, you know you can feel him breathing on your back, except for when he had that CarMax commercial. I don't know why he did that CarMax commercial. Maybe he needed the money. But you could feel Usain Bolt breathing down your back. And I felt that Phoenix had that early start, and it really holds up when you have an early start and somebody's breathing down your neck. And with Holiday's defensive brilliance that stole the whole show down the stretch. And again, I just got to be honest, it looked like it was, or it could have been a foul, but they're not going to call fouls in that sense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Looks like it could have been a foul on who?
Holiday when he grabbed Booker by the arm and then stripped the ball out of his arm, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, that was a clean grab.
Oh, yeah,
but I mean,
okay.
He went down, took the ball. When you got the ball down below your waist, you have to understand NBA rules. When it's down below your waist, it's free game. And if the ball gets stripped at that point, the NBA will never call a foul on the defender. When it's up above your waist, that's when they look at it, Johnson. But when it's down low, it's fair game. And if you look at balls when they're on the floor, when players are tussling for them, all of that, you never see the official throw a call a foul,
yeah.
And the player can have the ball on the ground. But it's down below the normal waist length. And they took the ball. I mean, it was a great defensive play. But not only that, to be able to have the presence to go down, and I commend Giannis for hustling down the floor.
Oh, my goodness.
To get in position for that lob. And you think about how perfect that lob had to be.
Yeah.
When you're going full speed from both players, the guy dribbling the ball as well as the guy running on the break.
Yep.
And Chris Paul, all he could do is try to grab it.
Yeah.
And I thought it should have been a flagrant foul on Chris Paul. The officials gave the Phoenix Suns a break on that point because there was no way that Chris Paul was going up trying to block the shot. You're grabbing a player around the waist while he's in the air.
Yeah.
That's creating a physical problem for the player that's in the air. Think about if he loses his balance and comes down and twists his knee.
Yeah.
That should have been a flagrant one. But the officials gave Phoenix a break trying to keep him in the game.
Yeah, I thought it was a make-up non-call because Booker was fouled. He had scratches all over his arm, and he was not on the ground, but they let it go. And that was a make-up non-call because I agree it was a foul on Giannis, but they knew they blew that call, and they should have called a foul on Holiday when he grabbed Booker by the arm and then stripped the ball out, and that's illegal. But it's all fair and level where that was a make-up call in my opinion. But I do want to touch on something because that thing by Giannis, he has like a highlight reel because a king has a lot of highlights, Big C. When you think about it, the Bible's written after King James, okay? But Giannis is writing his own scripture. And no one ever called King James a freak. And I heard some white woman call Giannis a freak. And that just burns my gut because I'm a proud black man that actually reads. I know some guys don't read, so you can call them and their mothers and their kids a freak, and they think it's a compliment, but I think that's insulting. No one would ever see a baby coming out of the womb and say, look at that black freak. I hate that garbage, so I'm going to call them out. But that Holiday to number one, the strip, and the fingernail scratches in Booker's arm, it wasn't called. They went down the court. You couldn't hear because the crowd was just too loud, Big C. But Giannis is good at sign language, and he kept pointing to the rim, to the rim, to the rim. And Holiday saw him where a lot of players would have pulled back and maybe played for the foul. And he threw a perfect lob pass, an alley-oop pass, and King Giannis grabbed it with two hands, threw it down, and what I loved at the end of it, he gave a pose to say, blankety blank, you blankety blank people who called me a freak. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think he was doing that to the Phoenix Suns, Charlton. This is my house. He came to the desert and said, look, I'm putting my hoof print down right here in the desert.
Yeah.
And this is something that the Sun can't catch up with.
Yeah.
But like I said, the referees blew the call because that should have been a flagrant one. When you go up to defend a player, Charlton, you have to at least make an attempt at the basketball when they're in the air.
Yeah.
Chris Paul never made an attempt at the basketball. He went and tried to grab Giannis around the waist. That is a flagrant one because the player is in a prone position where he can potentially injure himself.
Yeah.
So I think it was a dirty play from Chris Paul going up grabbing Giannis because you had no chance of getting your hands 12 feet up in the air to grab, to try to block the shot. Chris Paul wasn't going to do that. But, I mean, this is a game where the Milwaukee Bucks took it to the Suns physically in every aspect. I mean, if you look at Giannis's arms, they're full of scratches.
Yeah.
There are many times that he's hit down in the paint,
Yeah.
and nobody's ever calling anything. I saw Middleton a couple times get knocked over by Phoenix Suns players. The officials never call a foul. So that one play, like I said, under NBA protocol, when the ball is below the waist, the officials will never blow a whistle. So it wasn't a makeup call. It wasn't one to make up. They just blew the intentional foul on Chris Paul.
Yeah, it was a makeup call, Big C. The whole world saw it was a makeup call, but it's all fair and
You
level
need to
war.
see the NBA rules, Charlton. When the ball is below the waist,
You can't
the
scratch-
NBA does not blow a whistle.
You cannot scratch people and pull their arm out above or under.
Under NBA rules.
Well, we'll have to
regardless
disagree.
of scratches. I mean, we see players with scratches all through the game.
Yeah.
Broken noses, bloody noses. Look at Giannis's arms. So somebody's scratching him, and his shoulder's at least 6 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
And he's got scratches on those.
Well, it's
But
all-
the situation when the ball is below the waist, under NBA protocol, you do not call a foul.
That's not true. If it's not true, you can Google 1,000 plays, but that's an opinion, and that's your opinion. Nothing wrong with that. But you think about Middleton and Giannis dropping 25 points on Saturday. Each star taking his turn leading the Hall as a leading man, Big C. When Holiday paced the first half, he was 11 of 14 from the field. Slowed down a little bit in the second half. But there was something about this. It's a race mentality. And I've seen a lot of guys, even Carl Lewis back when he was running in the Olympics at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, he never really won a race from start to finish. And I don't know what it is about sports. Look at Atlanta when they had that 28-3 lead over New England in the Super Bowl, Big C. Oftentimes in sports, if you get out to a big lead, it's harder to fight off a person than it is to chase them down from behind, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the experience is what the Milwaukee Bucks have over the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have never been in this position before. You have to look at this team. This team is actually tired. They've never been this deep in the playoffs. Matter of fact, they've never been in the playoffs when you look at this group of players in Phoenix. Chris Paul's the only one that's been there. He and Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah.
Those are the only two players that's been in the playoffs. When you look at the rest of the roster, the key hub of that roster, Charlton, they don't know what it's like to play this late in the year.
Yeah.
They think they should be out on a golf course or on a cruise or something at this time of the year.
Yeah.
So they really are out of their element right now playing in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
When you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, they have 3-4 years of experience being in the playoffs, Charlton. They've been there year after year. And they understand that this is their best and maybe their last opportunity as a collective group to get over the top. So that experience makes a huge difference. And you can ask any professional athlete. Experience at this time of the year is the vice that will get you there.
Yeah, well, that's Chris Paul has the most experience as a leader and seen a lot of playoffs more than anybody in Milwaukee. But you think about Game 6, Booker. I mean, he scored, I think, 83 points in 2 games, and people may say, well, so what? But if you get someone to contribute like one more basket, and it could have been his basket, where I thought he was fouled and the ball was stripped away by Holiday, but that's the way the ball bounces. It's all fair and level war, but he remains one of the game's most explosive scorers, Big C. I mean, like the new making of Kobe Bryant, it seems, and Paul seemed to find a bit of rhythm down the stretch on Saturday. I think Tuesday night could very well prove to be another classic of 2 truly special contests, and I think we will see a Game 7. I mean, a lot of times when you look at NBA basketball, they still got to make up that money of losing 10 regular season games, and, I mean, that's just my opinion. That's why they didn't call that foul on the Holiday when he fouled Booker down the stretch. They need to get the money out of this series, Big C. Just my opinion. But I want to tell you something. I saw less flopping in this game than I've seen in other games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Because the officials said they're not going to stand for that crap, the acting job that the Phoenix Suns do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And like I said, the league is not worried about making up one game, Charlton. It's not going to make the difference financially as far as the whole league and how it stands. This was a game that came down to, if you say it's all about one play, that was the difference in the game. Phoenix Suns were up by, 20 points at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
21 points. And so why didn't they continue that push instead of worrying about getting down to the last 17 seconds of the fourth quarter? Why didn't they continue that push that they had in the first quarter? What happened to them? Did they run out of gas? Did they forget how to play? Or was the Milwaukee Bucks that much more dominant team and able to make the proper adjustments, Charlton, to thwart off anything that the Phoenix Suns were trying to do?
Yeah, it's ebb and flow. It's like a drag race. Nobody loses on purpose. It's just about the luck of the draw, the call, the non-call. When you think about Drew Holiday, that steal, and I call it foul, on Devin Booker led to an alley-oop to Giannis, to King Giannis. Just like King
James. Think about this. You call that a foul. You remember when Giannis went up and blocked a Booker shot, and they refused to go to a replay, and it was a clean block, and they called it a goaltending? He got that ball before it got to the glass.
Yeah,
and if that had been called, Charlton, Phoenix wouldn't have been in that position. You talk about makeup calls, they wouldn't have been in the position of being 2 points down.
Yeah, but if I hit all 6 numbers in that Powerball, I have $150 million, Big C.
I'm talking about what you saw in the game.
But,
I mean, we can always divert to the lotto. It ain't got nothing to do with the basketball game. We're talking about what we saw with our eyes in regular time and in replay. As you say, you saw a scratch. We saw a ball being blocked that did not hit the glass.
So maybe you should officiate the game. The official said it was not goaltending, and that's what I love about sports.
And they said it wasn't a foul, so maybe you should officiate the game.
That's what I love about sports. Everybody has an opinion, and that's what makes the world go around. If everybody listened to one person, it'd be a dictatorship, and we don't have that dictatorship in this country. But you think about it, though. Drew Holiday, that steal on Booker, it led to the alley-oop on King Giannis, just like King James in the Bible. On King Giannis, 122-119. Milwaukee lead, and then Chris Middleton, his free throws, with 9.8 seconds left, it followed an offensive rebound and make it 123-119 for all the prop bettors. But I want to touch on Giannis before the Big C pause, because I saw a movie called The Terminator by the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I remember this greatest scene when he told the police station, "I'll be back," and he came back. Giannis came back from a knee injury in the last series with Atlanta, and people thought he was going to be out. I think he and Capella clashed knees or whatever happened, the hyperextended knee. No one could tell that Giannis had a hyperextended knee because he is balling like a king. You would expect the king to play the way he's playing. And when you think about it, you got to play like a king to win the finals. 32 points on 14 and 23 shooting with 9 rebounds and 6 assists. The great Chris Middleton followed up his 40-point effort in Game 4 with 29 points, 12 and 23 shooting. He also contributed to 7 rebounds and 5 assists. That's amazing for 2 players. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you look at the balance that the Milwaukee Bucks had, Dalton. They had 3 players score over 25 points. And that's what you have to do when you get down to this point. I understand all the starters from Phoenix were in double digits, but the balance that Milwaukee brought to the game, when you think about their big three, in Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis, but, Connaughton, really scored coming off the bench as a 6th man.
Yep.
You look at Porter. Porter was able to knock him down, Charlton. They got points from everybody. I mean, Lopez, when he was inside, he was unstoppable.
He's good.
And the physicality is what made a difference in this game. I mean, you go out there and shoot, get 40 points from the arc, but when you're not going to the free throw line as the Milwaukee Bucks, I mean, you think about Giannis. He has gone to the free throw line more times than anybody on the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he has made more free throw shots than all the Phoenix Suns combined.
Yep. Well, maybe the fans will stop counting to 12, and some knucklehead that's pulling out fake money got robbed. Word I hear got robbed over some fake money. It's not fair in level where only a fool would count out his money like that. But great, you think about, Pat Connaughton had 14 points off the bench, 4 of 6 on 3-pointers. Booker finished 40 points his second consecutive game, 40 points. And think about this, his third 30-point game in the finals alone, Big C. He has to have some help from the other 5 starters for the Suns, reaching double figures in points. DeAndre Ayton, 20 points, 10 rebounds. The great King Chris Paul had 21 points, Big C, 11 assists doing his thing. Mikal Bridges, 13 points, and Jay Crowder had 10. Got to do better for Jay Crowder. Wasn't enough, even though Phoenix shot 55.2% from the field and 68% from 3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that means that the Milwaukee had a more rounded and better team, Charlton. If you can shoot that percentage from the field and from three-point range, that's something that the other team is outdoing you on. And the difference was, like I said, at the free throw line, where Milwaukee went by Holmes and Home Depot and Lowe's and got some paint rollers, Charlton, and they built a house there in the paint. And they dominated. They told the Suns, don't even think about coming in here because we own this real estate.
Yeah.
And by owning that real estate, Charlton, it allowed them a copious amount of attempts from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And when you're living at the free throw line and your opponent is only shooting 17 free throws, and Giannis is shooting that by himself in the game, you sit back saying, ha ha.
Yeah, that's called gentrification when you go on somebody's property and build a house. It's all fair and level where. Speaking of building houses, we're going to take this call the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this great game of basketball where you see these beautiful, handsome black men, a couple of white guys too, and I want to just acknowledge how all life came from Africa, kings and queens, and I want to educate the media on why they should acknowledge black men as kings and not freaks. Will take the Big C pause. And the words of the former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps you can follow, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. I want to say thank you, a special thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV for presenting Big C Sports in a new application. If you watch the TV screen, and you'll see the way they made our pace look. It looks like we're ready for a Super Bowl 56. It's all fair and level. I really appreciate that. Also, I want to say all around the world, just open your app and say Big C Sports Podcast like Captain Kirk said, beat me up, Scotty. Just say play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll see all of our apps. And I think we're up to 14 different apps and 5 TV stations, and we did it without being called freaks. All fair and level war. NBA basketball, the Milwaukee Bucks, they're just 9-1. When you think about it, just 9-1. Just 9-1 in home playoff games. But this is a team that wasn't supposed to get past the Brooklyn Nets, Big C. And it took Kevin Durant having the shoes that was a little bit too large, and that's why the Milwaukee Bucks got here. And this is a team that doesn't mind playing from behind like the great Usain Bolt. When you think about it, Giannis has made more free throws, 39 of 66 for 59%, as you mentioned. And Giannis is 17 of 25 free throws at home, 69% in the finals, which is more than the next top 3 players have attempted free throws in the finals, with Booker 29 attempts, 8 and 17, and then Middleton 14. And I just think it's a great testament to finding out, do what you're good at, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, Charlton, who told Milwaukee that they were not supposed to be in the finals and weren't supposed to get past the Brooklyn Nets, because everything that people have said in the past is sitting back there in the past because Milwaukee's passed all that up. It's like what I said, physicality is the difference in this series. And when you look how physical Milwaukee has been against Phoenix, and you look how Phoenix has been laboring in the last 2 games of this against the Milwaukee Bucks, on the road and at home.
Yeah.
The physicality has made a difference. Giannis is probably the best big man in the NBA since his predecessor 50 years ago in Milwaukee, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
When you think about how Kareem could dominate a game when he was playing in Milwaukee 50 years ago when they won their first championship ever, Charlton.
That's right.
Giannis is that same type of physical player. People don't realize how great an athlete Kareem was. Kareem could play against everybody. That was you can Google it. Kareem played Dr. J one-on-one in their prime.
Yeah.
And he dominated Dr. J, not dunking the ball, but dominated physically and athletically, because he had a handle where he could handle the ball.
Yeah.
He had a shot that was unstoppable. And Giannis is in that same mode when you look at Kareem. When he's down in the paint, no big man is as quick as he is in the NBA. He can get his shot over anybody. If he ever stopped watching highlight reels and stop watching Steph Curry and Dame Lillard and other players, Donovan Mitchell, shoot 3-point shots, Dalton, this is a guy that can go in and get you 32 points every night in the paint without taking a 3-point shot. Think about how good Milwaukee would be at that point.
Yeah, they were the number 4 seed coming out of the Eastern Conference, so a lot of people thought Philadelphia would be here. So did I, but Giannis got hurt too. I know everybody gets hurt at times, but Giannis played through that pain of whatever he did. People thought that it would be the Milwaukee, the new Brooklyn Nets, New Jersey, Brooklyn Nets. Didn't happen. Those 2 teams didn't happen. But Giannis is carrying this team, and that's why I saw a thing on USA Today, and it had the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I challenge anyone that said he was one of the best orators in the history of the universe. And he talked about the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I listen to a lot of young African-American kids, especially around the AAU camp, and they all want to be like Giannis now because he's clean-cut, never been in trouble. He's not one of those guys that has a troubled background, Big C. And when young black kids hear a man that they look up to being called a freak, it reminds me of Governor Wallace when he said, segregation now, segregation forever. But the miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson, and I want all of our mainstream reporters, even the dumb black people that call him a freak, read Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. If you tell a person too many times that they're not who they are, then they'll start embodying that, and that's a shame. I challenge any parent that has a child, call your kids freaks. Just call them freaks them out of the womb until they leave your home, and watch how much psychological damage you do to those kids. And I don't call any black men freaks. I hate when white... And I want to ask Adam Silver, you don't call Jewish people freaks. There are nobody saying, look at that Jewish freak. You don't do it, Google it. I hate that garbage, and you got to fix it, Silver. If you don't fix it, then don't complain when somebody is anti-Semitic, because that's a big stain on black Americans, especially the most incarcerated group of people on the planet. He's not a freak. NBA basketball, Wes Unseld Jr. has agreed to a 4-year contract extension to be the next head coach of the Washington Wizards. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this is the full cycle when you think about Wes Unseld Jr. You think about his dad, Charlton, 50 years ago, this year. He was Rookie of the Year in the NBA. Not only that, he was the MVP. He's the first and only player in the history of the NBA to be able to accomplish that. And now, Charlton, 50 years from that anniversary, his son gets an opportunity to be the head coach of his dad's franchise.
Isn't that amazing? Unseld, as you mentioned, raised in the Washington Wizards organization, working for 14 years as a scouting and coaching roles before moving on to become one of the league's rising stars and assistant coaches. And he was never called a freak by the organization. I want mainstream, because I'm really upset when I hear people say, oh, that's anti-Semitic, or that's anti-gay, or that's anti-Asian, oh, he's black, oh, he's a freak. I hate that garbage. I've never called my mother a freak, and she would be embarrassed to hear that people have accepted that role. They can call you anything nowadays. I know Malcolm X would have said, hell no. And I'm telling Adam Silver, you should fix that stuff. I mean, people called freaks to Colin Kaepernick, and he can't get a job because decent people, they said nothing. And all he said was stop killing black people. And I hate that garbage that they sit by and say nothing. But Unseld, when you think about the 14 years, Big C, now he's a coach, and I think he's going to bring a lot of good things based on that experience that he has. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has a lot of experience working throughout the NBA. He has seen the NBA grow from his childhood, Charlton, to where he is now, getting his first head coaching stint in the league. The Washington Wizards are a team that has gone through a plethora of head coaches. They just got rid of Scotty Brooks, who had formerly been in OKC, Charlton. But I think that Wes Unseld Jr., understanding the climate in the nation's capital, Charlton, can bring some stability to that organization if they find a way to keep Bradley Beal around.
Big C, I agree wholeheartedly. You think about the return, punctuates a remarkable homecoming. As you mentioned, his late father, Wes Unseld Sr., the most important figure in franchise history is a Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Famer, coach, and executive at Washington. He's the 7th African-American head coach hired out of 8 openings in this offseason of the NBA. It's amazing they don't call black coaches freaks when they're looking for jobs, as we oftentimes complain about not having openings. But nobody gives freaks a job. They give men a job, and when you think about it, the 7th African-American head coach hired out of 8 openings in this offseason in the NBA. And last thing, Adam Silver, I got to say this to you. If you don't have the common sense to sit down with Reverend Jesse Jackson, who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and also John Lewis and other civil rights activists, they fought so hard to turn away from the vitriol that they faced being sprayed with water hose. They had dogs sicked on them, beating up black women. Law enforcement and mainstream did it with impunity. And now today, because we put lipstick on a black man and call him a freak, and again, I challenge anybody to say, if they call Jewish Americans freaks, there'd be a whole national media uproar about it, and they would maybe fine some people and suspend them from the league because of that. Give black men the same love and the same respect. All life came from Africa, Big C. But I want to get back to this because it's so important. The New Orleans also finalizing an agreement with the Suns assistant, Willie Green, and then Portland's Chauncey Billups, Atlanta's Nate McMillan, Orlando Jamal Mosley, Boston Ime Udoka, Big C, and Dallas Jason Kidd, the Dallas Mavericks, who also won an NBA championship with the Dallas Mavericks. And then you think about, they hired black coaches. They didn't hire freaks, but they hired black proud men coaches. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, some of these coaches have had a sketchy background, but, the hiring of Unseld in the nation's capital, I think is a positive move. His dad was an MVP playing center in the NBA. He spent the last 6 years with the Denver Nuggets And so he's leaving a team, Charlton, with the current NBA MVP who plays the center position also.
Yeah.
So he's well-versed at developing big men.
Yeah, and you got to have some big men out there. I think King Giannis is showing us what it's like when you have a prince, a king, like in Wakanda. They never call anyone in Wakanda freaks. The great Ryan Coogler out of Oakland, California. I met a guy today as I was getting some gas. He grew up with Marshawn Lynch, and we were talking about Marshawn Lynch as a football player. They went to the same high school over in Oakland. And we had that conversation about how good a lot of athletes are that come out of Oakland. And I really appreciate just some of the things that we talked about, how some of these young black men that come out of Oakland, and I had grandparents that lived in Oakland when I was a young boy, grew up. Grandfather owned 2 service stations in Oakland, and oftentimes had a hard time getting them because they didn't want to sell to a black man. So he had partnerships. He was a reverend. And I was really proud of what he was able to do to plant that seed for me. I've never heard my grandfather, my late grandfather, or grandmother, or any of my grandparents call me a black freak. Never. And I hate when people do that if they're dumb, they don't know any better. But I want Adam Silver to really address that the way you would do anti-Semitism, Big C. At the same time, you think about including Unseld Jr. and Mosley Billups and Green, or former assistants, getting their first time opening head coaching opportunities. And of course, nobody has a clean background. Nobody but Christ can throw a stone, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's just nice that guys can get a job, and we'll see what they do once they put their teams together.
Yeah, I do want to ask you this thought, though, because, again, it's my opinion, and everybody says, oh, maybe, Charlton, you talk too much about history. Just talk about the facts. I really appreciate how so many people, that when there's a lack of African-American coaching opportunities, you know, people don't sit on their hands and say, well, we don't want to make a stink right now. We don't want to bring attention to something because we don't want to upset mainstream. If it's happening, it's going to happen in God's time. I really appreciate the fact that today, Big C, that more men, they'll stand up and talk about opportunities and why they need opportunities. Would you agree, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, men have always stood up and said why they need opportunity, they want opportunity. That's the stride of fairness, Charlton, that men have always asked for in society. That's nothing new. Everybody's wanted opportunities since the sun has started rising.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't always happened. That's why people complain for opportunities if they don't get them. I don't think many white men have complained about not having opportunities to coach at any sport, even though they're in the minority when it comes to playing the game. But it's all fair and level where I'm happy and wish everybody the best. The pitch, hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run. Say hello to my little friend. The great Scarface is all fair and level war. The girls love the long ball and men love hit the deep. I'm telling you, Major League Baseball, the Giants and the Dodgers, defending world champion Dodgers, they have a big game tonight, Big C. But I want to run down a couple of games that are set to start today. The Minnesota Twins, they're at the Chicago White Sox. And that great Tony La Russa, I don't know if it's no-dose or if he's just drinking extra champagne. That good of a can take a nap and still manage a team that's competing for a division, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they're going to win their division, Charlton, hands down. They have a solid roster, great, tremendous young talent that has developed. They were there in place when Tony La Russa took control. They just needed somebody to hone it, Charlton.
They needed someone to hone it. Basically, the Marlins at the Washington Nationals. I got to bring this up. Well, we'll talk about that later. I just want to get your thoughts on something that's really important to me. The Red Sox at the Blue Jays, Big C, they just got beaten down by the New York Yankees. The Rangers at the Tigers of Detroit. The New York Mets are in Cincinnati taking on the Big Red Machine, part 2, maybe not. And then the Orioles are at the Rays down in Tampa. The Indians are at the Astros, and we have the Cubs at the Cardinals. The Minnesota Twins at the Chicago White Sox playing again today. The Pirates at the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim will take on the Oakland Athletics in the City by the Bay. And the San Francisco Giants in that big game at Oracle Ballpark over in San Francisco. They're not playing there tonight because they're tired of those blankety-blank birds that keep giving people, I guess they call it, they come off and drop off packages. It's not ketchup, but it looks like mayonnaise, Big C.
Well, can they tell those birds from the citizens by the bay?
Yeah. That's funny. Well, they're playing it down at Chavez Ravine in beautiful Southern California. We wish them nothing but the best. Right now, going into that game, the Giants are still a half game ahead in first place. But by the time this series is over, it may not be the case. But I want to bring up something to you that I know that the nation's capital, I have family that live back in the Washington, D.C. area. But Saturday night's game between the San Diego Padres and the Washington Nationals was suspended after a shooting outside of Nationals Park, the team announced, and I think I even heard it when I was watching some highlights. But the shooting occurred outside of third base gate, Big C. The team, the D.C. Metro Police, said that halted play in the sixth inning and leading to moments of panic inside and outside the stadium. 3 people were wounded in the shooting, according to the Metro Police Department, Big C. And the gunshots were audible from within Nationals Park, showing confusion among fans, players, and stadium employees. It was quite a scary scene. I just want to get your thoughts on how that can be fixed, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, how can it be fixed? I think, we had a conversation a week or so ago when you were talking about Black Lives Matter and, unjust shooting by the police. These weren't the police shooting outside Nationals Ballpark in Washington, D.C., Charlton. Ironically, these were some black men that were firing, recklessly into a crowd of people at a baseball game who had their family members there. Just sitting there taking your kids to the ballpark, having an evening of fun and excitement in the summertime.
Yeah.
And we get these careless individuals going to go by in a car and fire out of a car, Charlton, into a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Reckless. They hit 4 people with bullets during this scenario, Charlton. So when we talk about the reckless disregard for life and the need for police and more police on the street to protect people, Charlton, people need to stop just saying Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. And those black people that are out there pulling the trigger when they're driving by a stadium, shooting into a crowd, they need to be in jail.
Yeah, but white people shoot people too. Crime.
I'm saying what happened at this incident.
Well, that's
I'm not talking about every shooting. If we want to do a show about every shooting in America, I got the statistics where we can do this. I'm talking about these people who are recklessly shooting at a baseball game. We didn't hear about a white guy going by shooting at a baseball game. The video showed black guys driving by shooting out of a car, Charlton, into a crowd, recklessly. If you got a beef with somebody, go talk to them. But don't drive by shooting out of a car into a crowd of hundreds of people, Charlton, that you don't know, don't have anything to do with the beef that you have personally with somebody else.
Yeah.
Putting innocent lives in danger because you're stupid.
Yeah, but you said I, but we is plural. I is singular. So if I want to talk about something, I have the freedom to say that. And I just want to say America's a very violent country. Malcolm X was gunned down. Dr. Martin Luther King was gunned down. The 2 Kennedy brothers were gunned down. They were not shot by black men. Okay? America's been a very violent country. The Vietnam War saw more black Americans murdered in Vietnam per capita than any other race of people.
Let me give you something more recent, Charlton. Since the George Floyd murder that we saw on television by a white police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, there have been 8,574 deaths of black people in America at the hands of black people in America. We don't have to go back to Vietnam across an ocean. We don't have to go back to 65 or whatever it was, 66 when Malcolm X was killed. We can talk about last year. In the past year, what has transpired in America, that over 8,000 black lives have been lost at the hands of black people in America. So we can talk about white people killing each other. We can talk about Hispanics killing each other. We can talk about Asians killing each other. But the statistics prove what they are.
Okay, before I was cut off again by another black man, cutting off another black man, that's part of the problem, lack of respect for each other. But America's a violent country, and America was captured by war. Everything that we've done in this country has been taken rapaciously. The Native Americans asked them that. So I want to look at this society, even what happened in the insurrection on January 6th. That wasn't black people storming our nation's capital. But the fact of the matter is, we are a nation that has gotten this country through crime and violence. And when you have one group of people, whereas when mainstream media and even some of our own ignorant black Americans can call other black men freak, it's easier to kill a freak than it is a human being. And that's a fact. That's why a lot of people, you can almost tell when people have not read Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro, because they'll argue to be ignorant. And I'm not an ignorant person, so it's hard to have that conversation. America was built on violence, and it doesn't matter what color you are. It's a violent country, and we got to fix it as a country. That was my opinion. But I go back to baseball. When you think about it, there was a fan threw a baseball at Boston Red Sox left fielder Alex Verdugo, and it hit him in the back during Saturday night's game at Yankee Stadium. It wasn't a black man that did it. Leading man, manager Alex Cora, to briefly pull his players off the field in the 6th inning, Verdugo began yelling at the fan, who was restrained by first base coach Tom Goodwin, Big C. And you think about it, it's just a game, Cora said. It's a game. It's not life and death. It's not this drama The fact that people come to the ballpark and they decided to throw a baseball at one of the players, that he was a shock that it happened. But again, I just said it. And people can read a book called The Color of Law, especially when you want to argue that black crime is higher than white crime. There's a reason for it. It's designed that way, and it's embarrassing having a conversation with someone who doesn't understand that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think throwing a baseball is a lot different than firing a gun into a crowd. Yes, this rampant fan threw a baseball back at a player after the player tossed it to a Red Sox young fan in the stands, and he intercepted the ball and threw it back at the player. We've seen this happen on many occasions in baseball, but it doesn't cost somebody their life, Charlton, or potentially as a bullet flying into the crowd.
Yeah, but America's a violent country. You just got to know the history, how we became the United States of America, and don't blame the people that were that were sacrificed for the gluttony of this country, and then blame them that have been told they're freaks, they're the N-word, there are a lot of other garbage.
I'm talking about the baseball game. I understand the history of America. I live in Black America every day.
Obviously,
but
you
I'm
don't
talking about when you drive by a ballpark and you fire out of a car at a crowd of people that are there enjoying an evening with their family and children. That is a heinous act. A much more heinous act than what we see with a baseball being thrown back at a player hitting him in the back, which both incidents are wrong, but one's totally egregious.
Both of them are egregious, but there's a history behind things. It's all fair and love and war. And when you think about it, Big C, they got to keep people safe. And I guess that's why we have jails. I mean, some people they're just meant to go to jail. It's in their DNA. They always do wrong until they get caught. Verdugo said he threw the ball into the stands, and a young Red Sox fan, but a Yankee fan, intercepted it and threw it back onto the field and hit Verdugo. I remember I was in New York City and going up to Boston, and I just bought a souvenir hat in New York City from a guy on the corner, along with a couple of Rolex watches and some gold chains that turned green after a while, Big C. And people were saying you can't really wear that Yankee hat in Boston. Some people are really demented, and they don't look at it as being, oh, it's just good old fan behavior. Some people are just crazy, and it's even out here in San Francisco and Los Angeles where the guy was beaten up, almost lost his life because he wore the wrong color jersey. Big C, your thoughts?
You have a lot of demented fans, Charlton, all over the United States, and I've been seen in situations like that, Charlton, where, I've been, attacked verbally because of the color of my uniform and people knowing who I was when I was an athlete.
Yeah.
So I understand that never goes away, but when we talk about sports fans versus somebody pulling a trigger on a gun, it's totally different.
Yeah, well, no, it's not different. I mean, you haven't read Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. It's all fair and love and war. I want to touch on college football, Big C. The NCAA, some people say it's worthless after the NIL name, image, and likeness decision, the NCAA model that is crumbling after the new NIL rules were instituted. And it's just everybody has an opinion about this stuff. When one society, mostly white, have been stealing money for 150 years, and there's a little dent put into it, people say, oh, things are crumbling, Big C. But the future of college sports that puts fewer limitations on athletes and de-emphasizes the role of a national governing body like the NCAA, which was founded 115 years ago, Big C, and oversees more than 450,000 students, when you think about it, Big C, who play sports, and that's amazing. But the NCAA, more than 1,100 member schools, Big C, should consider a less homogenous approach to the way sports are governed, and just my opinion, re-examine the current three-division structure, which includes about 355 Division I colleges. The NCAA should not shy away from the fact that a small percentage of athletes are using college sports as a path to professional sports. That's like 1%, though. And then the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, for one, has been promoting a plan to revamp Division I and pull major college football out of the NCAA's purview altogether. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, what's going to happen if the NCAA falls apart, Charlton? What's going to happen to the structure of college athletics at that point? Who's going to be the organizers that go up there and set up the college football playoffs, that set up the college basketball playoffs, who set up the college baseball World Series playoffs, Charlton, even in volleyball and all other team sports?
Yeah.
If the governing body of the NCAA cease to exist, how will these athletes who are now making funds off their name, image, and likeness, how will they organize and stay structured to create a bowl system, Charlton, in postseason play for universities to be involved in? Who's going to go out and negotiate those contracts for those games to be on television? And where's the funding going to go? I mean, we talk about opening Pandora's box with the name, image, and likeness. Yes, that's nice. It's great that athletes will be able to be funded.
Yeah.
But if the NCAA ever decides to break apart, what's the next step for college athletics?
Yeah, they had that question 115 years ago before they became a multi-billion-dollar institution.
I understand 115 years ago. I'm saying if the NCAA decided to disband, what would be the governing institute of the NCAA at that point?
They have lawyers with degrees that figure that stuff out, just like when someone goes to the doctors went to school and went to medical school to figure out how to fix complicated problems like head trauma and heart attacks and strokes and all kind of things. They're going to kick all the dumb guys out of the room and get the smart people in, and they'll figure out how not to lose $1 billion. It's always good when people have competition. Competition built this country, and with competition, everything gets better. But you can't keep justifying stealing and robbing from people because you may have to get a job. That's just my opinion.
But who would you exclude and who would you include? Because you can go out there and say, okay, we want to break up college football out of the NCAA, but we don't want to bring everybody along. If you have not been a profitable program or a winning program, say you just want to take the top 25 schools, the top 50 schools in the country, and make one entire league out of that and say, we're going to go play for all the other money, and everybody else has to fend for themselves. How will that affect scholarships for athletes in years to come? You know, will universities have to lose scholarships? I understand you got smart people in the room, and you'll put these lawyers together and all that. But if there's no money to pay for scholarships, what's going to happen to those athletes that are no longer able to go to college?
We live in the wealthiest country on the planet, in the universe, the United States of America. It got that way because smart people kicked all the dumb guys out of the room, and they created capitalism. And no one's going to lose $1 billion. That's my opinion. Two NFL football, when you think about it, two NFL football teams, which is also a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, they're not going to lose money. Under 50% vaccination less than 2 weeks, Big C, from start of training camp. And a person familiar with the vaccination rates, they told the Associated Press, as of Friday, the Washington football team in Indianapolis Colts had two of the lowest COVID-19 vaccination rates among the 32 teams in the league. And according to the person who spoke to the Associated Press, on condition of anonymity, because the league it hasn't released the numbers, which are changing daily, Big C. And again, they're going to have to figure this out because we're close to kickoff. But Pittsburgh, you have Miami, Carolina, and Denver have the highest vaccination rates. 13 teams have achieved at least 85%, a league source reported. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what's going to happen if the players test positive and you don't have the required number of players to dress for a game? What is the league going to do at that point? Are they going to delay the game? Are they going to cancel the game? Are they going to move it to a later point in the season? And now that there's 17 games in the season, there's not much leeway to have a game played, Charlton, when it's not in regular rotation.
Yeah, I think we already saw that. They paused a couple of football games. They moved them around. Same thing with college football. They moved things around with the NBA. We've seen that pause. We've even seen Major League Baseball. I think some good old boys for the Yankees had been around. I guess they tested positive for COVID-19, or they've been close to somebody who had it. And they figured out that's part of life. You got to adapt to things in life. You got to adapt, and they will adapt. I want to touch on something that's important as we come to a close today. Our show goes by way too fast, but it's all fair in love and war. This is going to be, I want Adam Silver. I know you listen to Big C Sports Podcast. I have proof of that. And so I thank you for listening. But I also want you to just put in mind what I'm going to bring up, because everyone around the world is listening. We have this Black Lives Matter, where people say they care about African American people. All life came from Africa, so to care about yourself is to care about African American people. But black history, and when you think about the knuckleheads that are still out there calling the black man a freak, and even some dumb black people say nothing about it, but if you call their mother a freak or their babies come out of the womb a freak, they say, oh, that's racism. It's a shame. But Adam Silver, listen to this. You're a smart man. The USNS John Lewis christened among national tributes 1 year after the late Congressman's death. And he was not a freak. He was a king, a giant of men. The christening of the USNS John Lewis was, think about it, held 1 year to the date of John Lewis passed at age 80. The event was not just a dedication of the ship, but an opportunity for members of Congress, family, and friends to remember the civil rights leader as a champion, not a freak. Listen up, Silva. John Lewis lives in all the spaces where people reach out their hands to pull others up to the lives that they deserve to have. And now he lives in the name and the embodiment of this mighty sailing vessel. That's a beautiful vessel, and its mission to fortify and sustain those who've committed themselves to the service of our nation. We do on every sports program. Big C pays homage to our military veterans. We don't call our military veterans freaks. We call them heroes. Giannis is not a freak, Mr. Silver. The christening of the 742-foot Navy ship, which will be used to bring fuel and supplies to other vessels, was one of many events across the nation on Saturday that commemorated the great John Lewis's passing. The city of Atlanta, Georgia, is also planning a more formal tribute later this month. Not one of those tributes will call the late Senator John Lewis a freak. He was a champion that pioneered civil rights, and I'm sure his heart would bleed to see that a black man is being held up as a freak and called a freak in front of the whole world as his blood is still on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I want to do my part to change it, even if I'm the only one. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I would love to see more young black Americans take the path of a John Lewis instead of just worrying about being athletes. To be someone who can change the world, to change this country, other than just try to change a game. And that was John Lewis's plight in life. He could have went to athletics, but no, he knew a greater need for black society, Charlton, and that was leadership and direction. Just like with this warship that's named in his name, to bring supplies and fuel to other ships. That's what John Lewis's life was, to bring supply and fuel to the mentality and lives of other black people in America, Charlton. To show them to aspire to be all that they can be and be not limited in one box. And that's what John Lewis brought to a lot of people. When you think about his activism, you think about his education, his leadership through politics. John Lewis lived a life of direction, and that direction wasn't worrying about how he could do on that night. It was how he could impact the world for years to come. And he's still impacting the world after he's gone from here, Charlton. John Lewis left a legacy of intelligence, not just athletics.
That's very well said. And again, Adam Silver, I know Roger Goodell did his thing when he was trying to have lift every voice and sing. Lift every voice and sing what? We're going to celebrate these black freaks? I don't like that. Imagine calling Jewish people freaks. You know you would say that that person needs to be suspended for anti-Semitic statements. You know that's true. Have the same character for black men. All life came from Africa. And especially when you pay homage to John Lewis. He was never a freak, even though he was treated like one and he's beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Words matter. It always matter as we manifest a more perfect union. Words always matter. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, you sting like a bee, you rumble, young man, rumble, with all you've got to use. How can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, today the SEC commissioner announced that the football season, if any team tests positive for COVID-19 and don't have the required number of players to play, that they will automatically forfeit the game. They will not be rescheduled. They will move on, Charlton, and that game will go as a victory for the team who had enough players that were healthy from COVID-19. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They've all been vaccinated for COVID-19. I wish the rest of America would follow suit.
It's all fair in love and war. Go see the doctor. Get your medical opinion. It's all fair in love and war. It's also fair every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, where you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.